Steve Mignani here at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts, doing the junkyard crawl with something pretty cool. This is a 1963 Mack B61 tractor. Now, we got to remember that the Mack brothers, John and Augustus, founded Mack Trucks in Brooklyn, New York in 1900, and within about 5 or 6 years moved the operation to Allentown, Pennsylvania, which was the home of Mack well into the 1990s. But this is a great old soldier. The B series was made between 1953 and 1966. So this 1963 is from the 10th model year of the B series run. Now, this is an old trooper. At one point, this was an over-the-road trailer hauling rig. We can see it's a 10-wheeler with tandem axles and a 5th wheel on the back. We'll get to that in a second. But in the last stages of its life, we can see here, the headlights are blocked off, the directionals are blocked off, and there's no way the DOT is going to approve this. Well, we look at the front, we see these heavy-duty mounts. This was a snowplow truck, perhaps used at a trucking yard or something. We can see here the heavy-duty mounts right there. So again, when you have a snowplow on the front, you can't even see through the headlights. So this was undoubtedly a snowplow for its final few years of operation. Now, the Mack Bulldog logo that we see right here was first used in 1922 on stationery and other things by the Mack brothers. 1932 was the first year this puppy appeared in metal on an actual Mack truck. Here we see it on the side, and there used to be one, of course, up on the grill here. Big old Mack truck, Bulldog right there, but it's gone. Somebody grabbed it. But they say built like a Mack truck, and this is the epitome of an old school Mack truck. No fiberglass, this is all steel. No aluminum, again, all steel. Now, under the hood on this puppy, we see this says Thermodyne. That tells us it's diesel powered. There was an engine called the Maxidyne, and in fact, there were 10 variations of the Maxidyne gasoline engine between 291 and 707 cubic inches. And again, gasoline engines in Mack trucks, yeah. But 1953 was the first year with the arrival of the B series for the Thermodyne engine family. Let's take a peek and see which one we have. Now, these engines were made between 673 and 864 cubic inches. They're monsters. And again, these Thermodyne engines were installed in about 80% of all B series Mack trucks. 20% were gas jobs. Now, this is naturally aspirated, no turbocharger here, so it's not a particularly brutal engine. But let's remember too that Mack was the first American truck manufacturer to have its own in-house diesels. In fact, I believe 1938 was the first year for a diesel-powered Mack truck. And meanwhile, other truck manufacturers were sourcing their diesels for outfits like Buda or Cummins. But again, Mack was the first American truck manufacturer to have their own homebrewed diesels, and they also had their own homebrewed rear suspensions. More on that in just a second. That's a pretty important thing. Now, we do see on this one here, many of these Macks will have a hubcap on the front here. A big chrome cap says Mack on it. This one has a different front. This is a long view Stemco style bearing, and this is actually a rubber plug right here. You can take this thing off and actually read how much lube there is inside of the bearings. Kind of a cool little touch right inside of there. Yep, got some gear lube going on, so we can tell if the wheel bearings are happy and saturated with oil. And it's cool. This truck's been sitting for I don't know how many years, and it still has, you know, liquid fluid inside there. It's not all petrified. But inside, these were all business. No air conditioning. Look at that mechanical electric fan on the dash. That crazy fan right there. No AC again in these puppies. The two stick shifts that you see on the floor right there, Mack had a twin transmission arrangement. One of those sticks operates a 5-speed, the other one a 4-speed. Between them, 20 forward gears for any job, except fast freeway hauling. Top speed on this thing might have been about 75 miles an hour with a trailer, which again was above the legal limit, not that anybody's counting. Now, this is, of course, a diesel. It does have auxiliary gas tanks. Here's the original. This aluminum one here might be a later edition, not sure. And this thing here is probably a water tank, which might have been added for more traction during its snowplow days. Again, water added to help the wheels push the plow that much better. Now, something here, again, is very important. Mack had their own diesels and their own rear suspensions. While a lot of other companies would have like a Hendrickson or a Timken type rear suspension, Mack had their own. They called it the Camelback suspension. And what they did basically was there about an extra ½ foot of space between the two axles, which allowed Mack trucks to carry another 1,000 pounds over the rear axle legally versus other trucks. I've got a couple of visual aids here. from my childhood. This is an MPC Mack DM600. You can see right here, there's the walking beam style Camelback rear axle. We can see the distance between those is farther than it is on this Kenworth frame. And these are both 1/25 scale models, but see the axle center lines. The orange one, which is a Kenworth or a Hendrickson style rear axle, and the Mack. The axles are farther apart on the Mack, which was part of the Mack recipe for getting the trucker the most bang for his trucking dollar. Speaking of trucking, this does have a fifth wheel, so we know that at some point in its early life, it definitely carried a trailer behind it. But a closer look too at this rear suspension, the Mack Camelback with the the longitudinal leaf springs right here. Patent pending. Again, this is something that Mack designed on its own. And these were exclusive to Mack trucks. And the weird thing about them too is the way that the differentials load in from the top. If we come around to the back right here, we'll see the rear differential. The housing has an open top. The gear set actually drops down inside, and we can see right down here, kind of an unusual design. Again, most other rear axles on trucks, Hendrickson, Timken, etc., have automotive-looking rear axles where the differential comes in from the front. In fact, here's another look with this model. Kind of a weird thing to see the face of the axle not on the front, but on the bottom. Kind of weird, but again, this is exactly in 1/25 scale and in plastic what we're looking at here. But it's kind of cool here. We have the torque arm, this radius rod type deal right here, which helped to prevent pinion rise, because again, we got something like 1,000 foot-pounds of torque coming through these axles, and the pinion wants to come up. Well, this keeps that from happening. Got a grease fitting on it right there to keep this thing lubricated. And something kind of cool on this side, you can see this inspection cover right here, which has an integrally cast caution. It says here, caution, when removing carrier, remove 2 screws under this cover. Mack. Here's the drain plug and the fill plug right here, but that's really cool stuff. Now, one thing I love about the junkyard, it's more than a place where cars come to die. It's also a classroom. Now, this would have had air brakes from the factory. Again, there's no way that a mechanical brake with your leg pushing a lever could make enough hydraulic pressure to activate the shoes on this massive truck. So there was an air reserve that helped to maximize or amplify the hydraulic power. But if we look here in the back, a little example of how these brakes worked. Now the drum is off, but we can see right here one of the 2 shoes. These shoes right here are acted upon by an air chamber, which when it pushes up, the shoes expand. You can see the shoes kind of growing right there. Kind of cool. Again, junkyard as classroom. Now clearly in this case, the drum is not present inside of the wheel, but when the air brake works, this arm is activated. These things contact the inside of the drum, makes friction, slows the wheel, slows the load, and that's how Mack trucks stop. Now, a lot of these things didn't have front brakes. They only had rear brakes. But again, with 10 wheels, 8 of them being in the back and being in contact with the road, and with downshifting, these were pretty capable of doing almost any job. Now, Jacob's engine brakes, the Jake brake, I don't think those things were around in 1965 when his truck was built, or 63. But that said, downshifting would certainly slow this thing down. So that's the story of the Mack B Series truck. Gas or diesel, regardless, they're all built like a Mack truck in Allentown, Pennsylvania for most of their lives. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Magnante YouTube channel, and there's more to come here at Bernison Auto Wrecking.